Did you know as a taxpayer, you are both paying for abortion and supporting abortion vendors? It's unbelievable. My name is Kristen Hawkins. If you've never seen me or heard me or met me, I have the honor of serving as president of Students for Life America and Students for Life Action with more than 1,500 groups in all 50 states and college campuses across our nation. Our pro-life generation has been calling for the end of taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood now for decades. Simply put, we believe Planned Parenthood should, at minimum, go fund themselves. But what makes tonight's webcast special is that right now in Washington, D.C., the GOP, the Republican Party, has a real chance in the next few weeks to make defunding Planned Parenthood of our federal tax dollars, all those dollars we send to the government today on tax day, finally a reality. We have a chance to take advantage, Republicans have a chance right now to take advantage of a rare opportunity in national politics by using a federal tool called reconciliation, in which the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate will reach an agreement on the outlines of a budget deal. And they can reconcile their differences in negotiation, which will allow them to vote on a budget without needing 60 votes in the Senate. So, if the House and the Senate can reach an agreement, Congress has a real chance to finally defund Planned Parenthood and big abortion and the abortion industry of our tax dollars. But I want to be very clear, defunding Planned Parenthood via reconciliation is not the only way to cut funds to Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion Goliath. But right now, it is the strategy we need to pursue before this budget is finalized on Capitol Hill by the end of May. While Congress is now drafting this reconciliation budget bill, we also have a DOGE team on Pennsylvania Avenue who's actively identifying waste and fraud within federal programs and with our federal taxpayer dollars. So we hope that they will also include the discrepancies in Planned Parenthood's financial records that have been there for years, and even look at some of the past lawsuits where Planned Parenthood has admitted at fairly qualified health centers that truly give care to patients and make sure that their patients survive their healthcare technique. Because to be honest with you, if your healthcare kills people, especially preborn people, on purpose, you're doing something wrong. So I have some great guests tonight who are going to join me to discuss how we have a massive opportunity right now to finally defund Planned Parenthood. But first, I want to give you a website you can go to send a message directly to your members of Congress. Go to studentsforlife.org/tell Congress, or you can click the link in the webinar chat. They're going to be posting that link a few times throughout this webcast for you to be able to easily contact your member of Congress, telling them you expect them to finally defund Planned Parenthood through budget reconciliation. Now, our guests tonight are U.S. Congressman Mark Harris, former Ohio State Representative Jenna Powell, Christy Hamrick, the VP of Media and Public Policy at Students for Life, as well as Abby Johnson, former Planned Parenthood Clinic Director, now pro-life advocate and founder of Pro-Love Ministries, and then there were none. So my first guest tonight is Congressman Mark Harris. Mark Harris lives in North Carolina. He serves in Washington, D.C., speaking for his constituents there in North Carolina, and is also the senior pastor of a church. He was senior pastor of First Baptist Church in Charlotte for more than a decade. And now we learned just moments before we went live and speaking with him, he's preparing for his Easter sermon. Congressman, thank you so much for making the time to join us tonight.
Kristen, thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you. I count it a real honor and privilege. And thank you for all that you do for the life issue across this country.
Thank you. It's an honor to be able to know leaders such as yourself on Capitol Hill, because there's a lot of pressure when you get to Washington D.C., especially from the well-funded abortion lobby. But before we get to defunding, Pastor, I want to ask you for a minute about the moral issues. What are the moral issues that you see enforcing federal taxpayer dollars to go towards a business that we know ends life for profit, and creates serious conscience crises for many Americans when they write this check today on tax day?
Well, I don't think there's any question that there is certainly a moral principle here. Of course, as one that believes that life begins at conception, I recognize that America has blood on its hands. Anytime that we are using the coffers of the American Treasury to somehow perpetuate this really this dastardly act of taking the life of an unborn child. And so that is the highest moral principle, I guess, of all, is that we should be in the business of protecting life, of defending life, not perpetuating it through using our tax dollars to do it. And when you have an organization like Planned Parenthood that is literally spending hundreds of millions of dollars every year of taxpayer funds for abortion, that is a tragedy. And not only that, but we have all of the evidence and the things that they are becoming the number one provider of gender, working with gender dysphoria and leading into all of those kind of gender affirming care, which leads to child mutilation and all of these other things. So the fact that we've got an organization that since 1973 has killed over 10 million innocent children, the fact that they are somewhere in the funding channels of the American taxpayer, there needs to be a wake-up call. And I think that the more people become aware of that, the more that they're going to be willing to speak up and speak out that whatever you do, don't use my money to pay for it.
That's right. That's right. Can you help those of us at home or watching understand what kind of money are we really talking about here? Where is Planned Parenthood getting our taxpayer dollars? Because we often hear from pro-abortion advocates that, well, there's the Hyde Amendment says money can't go directly for an abortion. So pro-lifers are lying when we say, Planned Parenthood's getting our money and killing babies with it.
Well, I think it's just like any organization. An organization may have a whole series of services that they provide. And when they get just blank checks or they get checks that come from the federal government into their organization, nobody is necessarily following that to see, is it going to breast cancer screening or is it going to taking the life of innocent children? While Americans hear the series of things that Planned Parenthood may say that they're doing for the health care of women, that so much of it gets hidden when we're publicly funding this private organization, if you will, that is claiming all of the things that they do. So it's just like any organization that has its budget and has a series of services that they provide. We can't control necessarily how that money is being spent.
Yeah, and that's what we call we I think we've done some funny videos on the past of fungibility, right? Your mom gives you money, your grandma gives you money, your mom says you've got to use grandma's money for college savings, but you can use my money for whatever. You have no idea once it goes into your wallet, who was grandma's money, who was mom's money. And I know that's a simplistic way of explaining it. That's how I explain it to my children. But that's really what's happening, right? Your money's going, our money pays for their parking lots at Planned Parenthood, their receptionists, their electricity bill. And they're using that then in turn to light the operating room where they're killing children, or where they're giving these sterilizing wrong sex hormones to children, things that they'll never be able to take back. And I think it's fascinating. There was a report by the Family Research Council in 2022 on all the totality of federal government funding to Planned Parenthood. And they said since 1993 to 2022, they had received $10.35 billion from us. And in that time period, committed 7,442,666 abortions. I mean, it It's nearly 8 million children killed with 10 billion of our federal funds. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I know I worked at HHS, my first job in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of programs there that even as a young 20-year-old working in the federal government is concerning, because you have things like PEPFAR, which is, supposed to help eliminate AIDS and HIV in Africa, and Planned Parenthood got their little fingers in that pot. And so the way I try to explain to our students, 5 leaders, all the time is, if there is a pot of money in Washington, D.C. available, Planned Parenthood, their grant writers are going to try to find a way to get their fingers into that pot. They did it with the Zika virus, that mosquito-borne virus a few years ago, where Planned Parenthood was getting money to eliminate the Zika virus in Florida. I mean, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. What do you think? I'll ask you one more question since I have you, but I do know you have to go. You have an important job. What do you think members of Congress? What do you think they need to hear from the pro-life generation to kind of push them into doing something which we know is a little hard? I mean, Planned Parenthood is a massive lobbying firm. They have a huge political game. They fund all the Democratic political opponents. What do you think your colleagues need to hear from us?
Well, obviously, there are bills that are out there. I'm a co-sponsor of Representative Adderholt's bill to prohibit federal funding to Planned Parenthood and its
Mhm.
affiliates. So, there are bills that are out there, and they need to hear from their constituents that they need to support that. But you touched on it earlier in your opening, Kristen. This is a historical moment that we are facing right now in this 119th Congress, that we hold the majority in the House, we hold the majority in the Senate, and we hold the presidency. And things that we've been talking about running on for years, this is our moment in time through this reconciliation process to be able to look at these real hard numbers. And
Yeah.
we've got those working, running the public relations operation, if you will, because every morning that I wake up, I hear people that say it sounds like Christmas morning every morning, or it feels that way, because they find a new area that we need to cut, and it is really exposing to the American public exactly what's going on with our tax funds, and
Mm.
it's being a real wake up call. So we have an opportunity, particularly in the next month, as you said, by the end of May. It's an aggressive schedule, but when we get back after the Easter recess, there's going to be a time to mark up bills to really look at the areas that we're going to shrink the size of
Mm.
government. And I can't think of a better place to start shrinking than funds that are being used in this kind of way. And I think that this is a time that we just need to, as the president calls it, get back to common sense. And when it comes to funding the things that we are funding, I just don't think Planned Parenthood deserves to be on that list of things
Okay.
that would be funded when we are facing the challenges that we're facing right now. So aside from all of the reality of the moral issues, there's just the very practical common sense issues of how we're going to shrink the size of government, how we're going to control spending. And this is a perfect opportunity. So the more that people hear, the more of our representatives and senators hear from
Mm.
this, this is the time, no doubt about it.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. I think that's so important. You're right. This is common sense. When we're on college campuses with our Planned Parenthood Go Fund Yourself tour,
Mm.
I was monitoring the reactions of students last semester, and we even had pro-choice students signing up and signing our petition saying, once you made the case that, look, we have 19,000 federally qualified health center service sites, it's over 1,500 federally qualified service health centers. There's fewer than 600 Planned Parenthood clinics. Here's this massive list of federally qualified health centers that we already give taxpayer funds, what they do to help women, men, and children, versus the teeny tiny list of services Planned Parenthood provides. Then you look at the cost per patient served is double at Planned Parenthood than federally qualified health center. Then you look at the fact that Planned Parenthood is this massive political entity versus all of these qualified health centers that are true nonprofits. This is a slam dunk argument on campuses, even with pro-choice students, that we don't have to give Planned Parenthood our tax dollars. It's absolutely atrocious. So thank you so much, sir, for all that you're doing in Washington, D.C. Good luck with your sermon on Easter Sunday, and I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to see you up on Capitol Hill very soon.
Thank you very much, Kristen, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And while our next guest gets ready to join us, I just want to remind you to go to Students for Life action.org/tell Congress right now. I'm going to click it right now with you guys, and you can send a message immediately to your members of Congress demanding that they join us to defund Planned Parenthood. So please go to studentsforlifeaction.org/tell Congress. Our next guest is former Ohio Representative Jenna Powell, who just left office last year. Jenna, while she was at the State House in Columbus, served on the Ways and Means Committee and the Financial Institutions Committee, among many of her assignments. But Jenna, I wanted her to come on tonight because she knows what it's like to have Planned Parenthood coming for you and the media and during election, and she can speak specifically to that. And also, I want to make a big announcement that we are now partnering with Jenna and her team at Huntington Billboards for a national billboard campaign to defund Planned Parenthood that is going to place billboards in 7 states starting this Friday in Tennessee, Ohio, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, PA. Keep an eye out for these. These are going to be telling President Trump, Speaker Mike Johnson, and Senate Leader John Thune to join us to defund Planned Parenthood. Jenna, thank you for coming on tonight.
Thanks, Kristen. Thank you so much for having me. We're so excited about getting those billboards up and seeing them rolling across the nation.
We are so grateful for your partnership on this. And it's not every day a billboard company is excited about joining the pro-life movement and helping us achieve our goals of protecting human life. So it just speaks to your commitment as a pro-life champion when you were in the State House and now in the business world and now as a mom, which I'm sorry if this is keeping your baby up. I just realized that the time probably isn't too good.
It's good. He's a late nighter, so we're all good here. Yeah, but
There you go. Good for
exciting.
us, maybe not good for you long term. Okay, so before you can get back to your son, can you describe for us how abortion funds? This is something we rarely talk about, but how do they get slipped into state budgets, state fiscal budgets?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the congressman actually hit it really well that there's a lot of sneaky ways. You know, when you have a very large budget, I know the Senate in Ohio just passed their version of the budget, and it's around $61 billion. So that's a lot of money that's going a lot of directions. And it goes through very quickly. There's a lot of lobbyists, both on the Planned Parenthood side, that are working really hard in figuring out ways to kind of get it into the budget. And a large portion of our budget does go to healthcare. So a lot of it does come from Medicaid reimbursement dollars. So there's a lot of money that goes to the state Planned Parenthood that way. And then additionally, you have a lot of grants. So as the congressman mentioned, there's a lot of state grants that are available for, Planned Parenthood. While, they might say it's called a health initiative oftentimes, they're going to look at, STD testing and different things like that. They're going to put it forth as a health initiative. But the reality is that this is going toward killing unborn children in our state and in your state. And so it's really important that we pay very close attention. It is important that we ensure that no federal and state dollars go toward Planned Parenthood, because what we do know is that most of Planned Parenthood dollars go toward aborting unborn babies, which is truly horrific. And really what we don't want to see and what we want not only in Ohio, but states across the nation. Ohio is a red state, so you don't often find like line item funding for Planned Parenthood, but in blue states, you will find things like that in the budget. So that's where it gets a little bit more confusing, because in a red state, we're not going to allow a line item going toward Planned Parenthood, but there's tricky ways of making that happen.
I think, and that trickiness is what I think gets us in trouble sometimes, is when they a member will slip in, funding or grant. And what's interesting to me, Jen, is we often hear from abortion advocates that, healthcare for women is going to go down in the red states because the state budgets aren't giving money to Planned Parenthood, like nice California, New York, and Illinois. Yet, in the past 3 weeks, I've seen multiple Planned Parenthood clinics close, all in blue states: Illinois, Michigan, California, and I think Massachusetts. I mean, and so it's funny because they always make this argument that the red states are putting women's health care at risk and that Planned Parenthood's not getting funding, but these are states where Planned Parenthood is already getting funding, and they're shutting down their clinics.
Yeah. it is crazy to see. And, that's what we want to see more of, is more Planned Parenthoods closing their doors and ensuring that truly vulnerable women are not entering them and making
Yep.
life-altering decisions, not only for themselves, because I know you guys talk a lot about this, of, all these mental health issues increasing when women have abortions, but also for the unborn child, that when they walk in the doors, oftentimes they are choosing abortion for their unborn child. And a lot of them regret that for a lifetime.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. And I think it's interesting that they still can't make their business work. Even in the blue states, and I think that goes into chemical abortion. A lot of women are getting their abortion pills now from the internet. They're not going to Planned Parenthood for a surgical abortion. Planned Parenthood is losing money and they can't stay afloat. And that's why you saw that explosive New York Times article a couple weeks ago where the Planned Parenthood directors are criticizing National because they have raw sewage flowing into their clinics and they can't keep staff, and they're complaining about a lack of funding. So I think it
Yeah.
speaks to a massive systemic problem at Planned Parenthood and how much they really do rely on abortions to keep their bloody business afloat. And I think that's horrific. And I think there was a study came out today saying, less than 1 out of 10 women who are Medicaid, so that's government funded healthcare for women who can't, women and families who can't afford it, are going to Planned Parenthood. So that means more than 9 out of 10 are going other places for their healthcare. They're not going to a Planned Parenthood. It's not this agency that is simply, this massive behemoth helping poor women. That's not the case.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you a similar question I asked the congressman. So, what do you think best motivated your colleagues in office when you were looking to build a pro-life coalition? Did you find that your colleagues didn't care about preborn children and mothers, or was it just easier for them to like do nothing and then, but yeah, if you said this thing or if we
Yeah.
pro-lifers did this thing, it kind of pushed them to do the right thing?
Absolutely. So, Kristen, I think something what people have to remember is that, while Planned Parenthood and pro-life agenda is your number one thing, there are a lot of issues that are out there, and we believe that life begins at conception. And for some of us, that is our number one issue. But for a lot of reps, there's a wide array of issues that are happening. Everything from school choice to healthcare to Planned Parenthood to the transgender issues. There's a lot of different issues that as a state legislator you have to be an expert on. So oftentimes the squeaky wheel kind of gets the attention. And so I have listened in rooms with all the lawmakers in Ohio where opinions have been changed because their phones are ringing off the hooks because the people of our state are calling in, and the legislators have to listen. We have to hear it because we don't have a lot of staff, but our staff member is, their phone is blowing up, their emails blowing up with people that are calling and saying, "Hey, we want you to do this." And I've been in rooms where the entire conversation has shifted because the people have come out and said, "We will not allow this to happen any longer." And so, while some of us, it is our number one issue, a lot of the legislators are passionate about protecting the unborn, but it might not be the number one thing they're thinking about all the time. And so I think for people that are listening, your voice truly does make a difference. Calls, emails, talking to your legislator. You can do an op-ed in your local newspaper. Most people don't know that. Like, you can literally write an op-ed in your local newspaper, send it to your newspaper, and my goodness, with ChatGPT, it's easier than ever to write out your thoughts, make them articulate, send it to your local newspaper, and they almost always will publish them verbatim. And your representative, your congressman, they are reading those and they are seeing those because they are elected by the people. And so they have a pretty close thumb on what the people are thinking. And so I think that's something that women, men, children of all ages can do, whether it's emailing, calling, stopping by their representative, writing an op-ed. It's very important. And I've watched rooms completely shift directions because the people are speaking and the people have a voice.
That's such great advice, Jenna. Thank you for sharing that, because I think sometimes when we're doing these campaigns, especially if we're working in a state house, like right now we have a little situation in South Carolina where all the pro-life leadership has always been pro-life, but isn't doing much to advance our bill to end all abortions in the state. And we've been in rooms where then the members start getting emails and texts and calls, and sometimes these members get pretty angry. Why are you putting all these calls in? And it's like, hey, look, we've got to get this done, and we are showing you that your constituents are with us on this. And so I think sometimes pro-lifers wonder, like, are we being too pushy? We called the representatives 6 months ago and told them we wanted this. I'm like, no, I think when you're there at the state house, or if you're on Capitol Hill, you're getting pushed by people
Yeah.
constantly. That's kind of the job you run for office for. And so we have to be the loudest people in that room. We have to be the last man standing. And so I love your advice. It is right on. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Get back to your baby. But thank you for this partnership with the billboards. I cannot wait to see the waves it starts to make this weekend, calling on President Trump, Speaker Mike Johnson, Senator Leader John Thune to join us to finally defund Planned Parenthood.
I love that. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Our next guest tonight is Christy Hamrick. Christy Hamrick is Students for Life Action's Vice President of Media and Policy. Many people do not realize that our team at Students for Life is made up of incredibly talented individuals spread across the country. We're one of the few organizations that is capable of mobilizing a crowd virtually anywhere, from Alaska to Florida, to Maine, to California, to Arizona, to Nevada. We've done it all with little notice. And that's exactly what we're going to continue to do. It's why we're hosting this webcast tonight, and we're going to be debuting and announcing some pretty big action items in the next few days and coming weeks that the pro-life generation is going to be needed for. Christy, thanks for joining tonight. I want to first talk a little bit, take a step back from defunding the Planned Parenthood and big abortion on the national scale. I want to follow up to what we were talking with Jenna about, of what's going on across the country right now in state houses.
Yeah, you really are seeing some innovative legislation. People talk about the states being the incubator for legislation, and that's really been true. And Roe would still be here if states were not very creative in going after Roe and looking for chinks in the armor. And it's easy to say, and I probably one of the only person that's going to be on this call today that remembers the day Roe fell. Maybe one of the few times in my life I ever saw my father, who was a minister, cry, because our country at the Supreme Court level said you could kill children legally. And it's a shocking thing to hear. It's a shocking thing to live through. And
Yeah.
after that came down, people really struggled to how to legislatively and legally and morally oppose it. And states started attempting to pass legislation. Some of the first legislation was like fetal homicide laws, that if you kill the mother and the baby, that's a crime. And we all know that. But there was a lot of legal intervention that took place from 1973 to when Roe fell in the Dobbs decision. A lot of incremental steps, and sometimes people use that as a dirty word. My feeling is anything that gets rid of abortion is good. Big step, little step, I don't care. Let's just take the steps. So right now, in light of the Supreme Court model, what's happening at the state level, as you know, Kristen, as well as I, is an assault on the number one method and means of abortion, which is chemical abortion.
Yeah.
Post Dobbs, there was a real pivot by the abortion industry to push chemical abortion pills. And one of the things that we're really trying to do at the federal and the state levels is address this insidious, evil, cancerous pill that Bill Clinton stuck on the market in 2000 and is destroying lives by the millions without any safeguards. So at the federal level, we're really saying to President Trump, we took you seriously when you said you didn't want federal engagement, so stop funding it. You're paying for it in mandates. It's integrated through grants. It's insidiously insinuated into programs that help AIDS patients and travel for soldiers and women in the workplace when they get pregnant. Oh, also, let's kill your kid. It's shocking, really, when you start to look at it, which is basically, I just sit around reading the fine print all the time. And it is cancerous. So the states are really addressing chemical abortion and trying to confer rights on the personhood of the individual in the womb, as they should, and as we believe the 14th Amendment allows. But at the federal level, Right now, it's all about the Benjamins, not letting big abortion get paid. And it was really interesting today, and we were talking about this earlier, that Kaiser, which is a pro-abortion, left-leaning location, that really does try to be honest, though, talking about the fact that only 1 in 10 women of so-called reproductive age, because they're telling us the math, are going to a Planned Parenthood.
Hmm.
Women don't need Planned Parenthood. And I think that's what's been interesting, Kristen. And when we go into meetings on Capitol Hill, when you show them the math, people don't need Planned Parenthood. They don't want Planned Parenthood. They're not even going to Planned Parenthood. And federally qualified health centers can step up. And that's something that you've made a real point of in discussing in these Hill meetings. And I think you should go into that federally qualified health centers are a replacement for abortion. And that's something that really gets a powerful hearing when we talk about it on the Hill.
Yep. That's absolutely right. And I think that, as we've gone into this reconciliation process that we're in right now, we've been very clear, like, just tell Planned Parenthood to go fund themselves. We're not even having a discussion about shutting down Planned Parenthood or, maybe actually holding them legally accountable for the human trafficking that they've been committing for a number of years that we know about. We're simply saying just stop giving them our taxpayer dollars. This should be an easy ask for any congressman. I know it's not, but I think it's important. And I think, Kristen, when you're talking about the state battles that we're facing right now, I'm thinking about what's happening in South Carolina, what's happening in Oklahoma, where we have a real chance in Oklahoma to stop the illegal trafficking of chemical abortion pills into a pro-life state, a state that said no abortions, yet abortions are still happening. And we're going to be in Oklahoma, mobilizing that in Oklahoma City, trying to get the Senate and House, the Senate leadership on board. West Virginia, we had a real chance, and the House Speaker of the House, and his cronies killed the bill. They just simply didn't want to talk about abortion, even though they've always said that they're pro-life. In South Carolina, we've been door knocking. We'll be door knocking next weekend. We were door knocking this last weekend for the Senate President and Committeeman Wes Newton, who've always said they're pro-life, but when they got door knocks from students at their door, they weren't very friendly and weren't very pro-life. Let's put it that way. And that's a real problem. And I think that's something that is a threat to the pro-life movement, and pro-lifers across the country need to understand this, that we must keep the Republican Party a pro-life party. I think we win, honestly, when both parties, Republican and Democrat, will become pro-life. That's when we know we'll be winning, right? We'll have candidates on both sides trying to earn our vote. But we've got to hold specifically Republican leaders accountable right now to keep their promises that they've had for decades to stand and protect preborn life. And I think what we've seen at the state house is a Republican leadership blocking this issue, blocking these bills from advancing because, it's, oh, well, we want to legalize gambling in our state, or we want to do this other thing. We don't have time for abortion. Yet it's the world's largest human rights atrocity. No entity kills more humans every year in America than Planned Parenthood, and they're getting our taxpayer dollars. So I think that's why we have to keep the pressure up for these folks. This is why we've had TV, ad on Fox News. We're going to be running a massive campaign towards our U.S. senators and House of Representative members in the next month. Can you tell me, beyond reconciliation, because I know I want to get to Abby Johnson, our last guest for tonight, but beyond this budget reconciliation process, which we're in a sprint now because the Congress, Senate, and House is working on the process right now, what else is on the table to finally defund Planned Parenthood of federal taxpayer dollars?
Well, I have to thank you for really letting me be my inner political nerd, because you know that I want to geek out on this. Reconciliation, it's a process. We're in it now. We'd be stupid not to take advantage of it, and we are. We have a month-long window in which we can tell the GOP, and I say GOP because the Democrats don't care, to tell the GOP, if you do not cut Planned Parenthood out in this process, we will hold you accountable in the primaries. It's an important message. But to really get rid of this funding for Planned Parenthood, we need to debar and defund them. Debarring is a process in which the government says that this is a bad actor and a bad vendor. I look at Planned Parenthood and I see someone that's chopped up babies and sold the parts for money. That's illegal. You can donate body parts. Anybody that's gone to the DMV can be asked to donate a body part. We don't sell it. That's illegal. I see someone that's hidden the crime of sex trafficking. I see an organization that's been accused of Medicare and Medicaid fraud. There's a lawsuit in Texas right now. I see an organization that fights to keep the records of the people who die and have been hurt by abortion hidden.
Mm.
Lawsuits going on in Indiana right now.
Yep.
All kinds of efforts to block information around the country. I see a company that has had multiple complaints filed against it by its Black employees that it's a racist work environment flowing from a racist organization founded by a woman who wanted to see African Americans killed in the womb. This is a problem. And so you see a bad act. The process of debarment is where we basically call on the Trump administration, maybe the Department of Justice, maybe an inspector general at the DOJ, to take a look at who we're giving money to say, you're not qualified. Even if I wanted to support some of these activities and we I don't want to support you. And nobody knows better than Abby Johnson, how insidious they are and how horrific they are. But what I'm saying is, from what we know, there's a case to be made that they need to be cut off and kicked out. And we only need one person to do it, one inspector general. Once they're found to be a bad actor, they'll be kicked off platform wide. And that's our message to the GOP. If you don't reconcile the budget to get the money out, we're coming for you in the primaries, number one. Number two, if you don't take advantage of this opportunity to investigate this organization that runs ads against you and you alone, and that kills children, that kills women, frankly, through negligence, and that basically wastes money. And Doge, hear my prayer, open those Medicare, Medicaid books and see what kind of stuff is happening behind the scenes in that funding. That's what we're calling for. We want a real evaluation and we want them fired.
That's perfect. And I think you're going to be hearing a lot of that word debarment in the coming weeks and months after Planned Parenthood is defunded, because defunding will be time limited. Debarment can be for a number of years, usually 3 years. And we can make our case to the public, which will also help us turn away potential clients as they'll finally see all the evil that's been going on, all of the corruption that's been going on inside of Planned Parenthood facilities across our nation for decades. So, Christy, thank you for your political nerd advice and wisdom tonight. We appreciate it. Thanks for all that you're doing on Capitol Hill. Our next guest is going to be our last guest, someone I'm very excited to introduce. I'd like to remind you, before I introduce her, that you can help us to call on Congress to defund Planned Parenthood. Just go to studentsforlifeaction.com. studentsforlifeaction.org/tell Congress. Send an email to your House Representatives member, your 2 senators tonight, please. Now I'm honored to introduce a personal friend of mine, Abby Johnson, who has been instrumental in the fight for life. You know Abby, she formerly served as a Planned Parenthood director and has now dedicated her life to fighting for equal human rights for the most vulnerable, and is the founder of Pro Love Ministries and In the None. Abby, thank you for joining me tonight for this discussion. I appreciate you taking time away from your family.
Of course. So glad to be with you.
So as a former Planned Parenthood director, we've been seeing a lot of kind of current Planned Parenthood directors now coming out and talking about what's going on inside. Tell people watching what don't they know about why Planned Parenthood doesn't deserve our taxpayer dollars? I'm sure you know a lot more than any of us know.
Well, I mean, we've seen several in the past 15 years since I've left Planned Parenthood. We have seen several qui tam lawsuits, which qui tam lawsuits are Medicaid fraud lawsuits. One was my own qui tam lawsuit, come forward against Planned Parenthood. Any contractor, Medicaid contractor who commits Medicaid fraud should automatically be removed from a Medicaid program. Unfortunately, and we do see that happen for other providers, we do not see that happen for Planned Parenthood. They seem to continually get a pass over and over and over again. We see them commit many different infractions, that would be in line with removing them from a federal funding program. Any federal title program, whether it's Title V, Title 10, Title 20, or traditional Medicaid, which is Title 19. I think a lot of people, and why would you? Why would people know the different types of funding that Planned Parenthood receives? A lot of people don't really understand all of the different types of title funding that Planned Parenthood receives. Um, the largest pot of funding that Planned Parenthood receives, of course, is their traditional Medicaid money, which is a Title 19 program. It is also absolutely the most difficult uh, part of the funding to remove them from. Is it possible? 100%. So, you would have people out there that would say it's just not possible. It's too difficult. I would say to them, it is absolutely possible. We have seen it done in almost half of the states in our country, and we have that precedent set. We've actually had that go all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was held up at the state level. So, and it was pretty simple. Actually, we did it here in Texas. It was pretty simple. We just said that any entity that is affiliated with abortion providers or any entity that is currently performing abortions would not be eligible for title funding, whether it's title grants, which would be 5, 10, and 20, or traditional Medicaid, which is Title 19. It was upheld. We already have that precedent in place. We believe it absolutely can be done at the federal level. And it's like, you and Chrissy were talking about with the debarment. We need Planned Parenthood to be listed in the SAM, so the system for award management, which would remove them, and it would alert any other contractor. It would tell them you're not allowed to even work with Planned Parenthood. You're not even allowed to contract with Planned Parenthood. There's many other entities that contract with Planned Parenthood. This would alert them to say, you're not even allowed to work with them. And if you do, and you receive federal money, you are then on the chopping block to lose your federal money. So this is huge. What does that look like? Could it mean that there could be a potential government shutdown over this while there's a vote? Yeah, it could. It could. That's what it could mean. Is it worth it? Yeah, it is. It's worth it. And basically, it's just kind of the long game. How long are we willing to say? How long is the GOP willing to say we're willing to hold out until the Democrat? It's kind of like a game of chicken, right? How long are we willing to hold out and say we're not going to allow the murder of any more babies with our tax dollars, and we mean it, and we're going to hold out as long as possible until the Democrats fold on this? And I think they would fold. I know that they would fold. But, in the past, we just haven't held out long enough. And that's why Planned Parenthood continues to be in the federal budget over and over again. We have to remove them from the Title 19 funding. It is like Title 19 funding is like an unending waterfall of money. You can bill and bill and bill. That's why that program is so easily defrauded, because you can bill for anything. They're billing for abortions. They're billing for ultrasounds that they perform before they perform an abortion. They're billing for all the testing, the RH testing, the pregnancy testing, the blood pressures, all the things that they do before an abortion. They're billing for it. And they're saying it's not for an abortion, but it is. This is the largest program in the country where medical providers defraud the system. We've got to get a hold on this money. This is our money.
Yeah.
And we should be able to say, as the American public, the company, the organization that is murdering the most babies in our country should not be allowed to use our tax dollars. And that's essentially all we're saying. And we should be able to easily defund them. It's simple.
It's stupidly simple. Stop giving money to people who kill babies. Like that.
Yes.
And I think what you were saying about this game of chicken, I think this is why we're having this webcast. This is why we're going to continue to have events like this. It's about who is going to be the loudest and the longest standing person in that room. And I think we sometimes, as good Christian pro-lifers, not that we're all Christian, but we tend to think of ourselves as we're super polite. And we called the congressman 2 months ago, and he knows this is what we want, and he's our friend. I
No.
love Congressman Mark Harris, and I love just a few of the folks up on Capitol Hill, and some of them are true believers and are in this fight to win it, to end abortion. They've signed up to put their lives on the line in this political sense to end abortion, join us. But most of the folks on Capitol Hill, our state legislatures, their most important job is to get reelected.
Mhm.
And they're going to do whatever they think they need to do, whatever the pollster, whatever the fundraising consultant tells them they need to do. And we've had this problem in Washington, D.C. for decades, where the consultant class in the swamp, both in Democrats and Republicans, is virtually the same. You have a lot of pro-choice people who serve in the Republican Party apparatus and sphere who really don't care about ending abortion, defunding Planned Parenthood. This is why our movement is so powerful, because we're not being bought and paid for by political donations. We are doing this because we want to save these children, and it's why our voices are so powerful, and why we have to be that very annoying person where the congressman should know us by name.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Kristen, I know where you live. Thanks for calling me again. Be like, that's right, I'm watching you, sir.
Yeah.
And we
And,
can be
and that's
nice
a weird,
about
that's a
it.
weird thing, Kristen. Like people are like, oh, I don't want to call too many times. Why? Why not? Why
This is
don't
our
you
job.
do you think that they're like that they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, that Abby Johnson called again. Who cares? Like, well, what are you like gonna go to Christmas together? Like, are you having Thanksgiving dinner together? Like, do you have a personal relationship with the staffer that's picking up the phone and now it's going to be awkward at Easter brunch? Like, no, who cares?
I know, that's right.
Your job is to make your voice heard,
That's right.
period. And you know what? Even for those politicians that get into this, and there are a few that get into this because they care about abortion, they care about ending abortion. But here's the deal, they are still getting lobbyists beating down their door for other causes. And so even if, you know, they got in it for the pro-life movement, they're getting a whole lot of other issues bombarding them, coming across their table, lobbyists coming in. So we have to remind them, this is why you got in this fight.
That's right.
This is why you're here to fight. And we're going to remind you
Right.
every single day. Who cares? Call every day. Call 5 times a day. It's
right.
not hurting anybody. It doesn't matter if it gets on their nerves. It doesn't matter. Do it
Yeah.
anyway.
And your taxpayer dollars are paying for that receptionist who's picking up your call anyway. We all
Heck
wrote
yeah.
the checks today. I think
Absolutely.
that is so critical, Abby, because I hear this. I had a call last week. The North Carolina Speaker of the House said he wasn't going to allow the hearing on our life at conception bill that our Students for Life leaders had worked with the Senate, a state, a House rep to introduce. And he went out to the public and said, yeah, I'm not going to let it have a hearing. So his phone lines got shut down. Students for Life members were calling. I got a very nasty call from one of his staffers, very upset. Why did you do this? My boss has always been pro-life. He's has a pro-life record. I'm like, well, your boss went to the media and told him that a bill to end all abortions in North Carolina wasn't even going to be heard. So we're kind of mad, and that's our job. And I think that's what's important. Our job is not to be friends with the leaders at our state houses or in Washington, D.C. Our job is to save babies. It's one of the reasons I lived in Idaho. I don't have a politician living within like 5 miles of me. Well, I guess I have the county commissioner, but he doesn't really count. But that's it. I don't have to make friends with anyone here. They can all be mad at me in Washington, D.C. for calling them.
Yeah.
I'll see you when I'm there in a couple months, but I'm not going to Christmas parties with politicians, and neither are most of us.
And
so
let me just
stop
tell
being
you,
afraid.
let me just tell you quickly the power of your voices. So it was like 12 years ago, I think, that Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards kept coming out and talking about Planned Parenthood providing mammograms and how they were, you know, they were providing. Well, I had just left Planned Parenthood and I knew for dang sure there was not a Planned Parenthood in the country that had a mammogram machine. Right. I knew that. I had just left there. I knew that was true. I knew that what she was saying, this friend of mine who had been a friend of mine, Cecile Richards, I knew she was lying. Right. And so kind of for fun and kind of to be like a jackwagon, I said, listen, we're going to do a call Planned Parenthood day and schedule your mammogram day, right? We did it. We had tens of thousands of people. It got picked up on Drudge when Drudge was a big deal. It got picked up on Drudge. Everybody was calling Planned Parenthood. It like shut down their phone lines. Planned Parenthood, they were pissed, okay? Because we had tens of thousands of people calling Planned Parenthoods all around the country, calling to make Planned Parenthood mammogram appointments, right? Those phone calls, if you think your phone calls don't make a difference, I'm gonna tell you this. Listen to this story. It forced Cecile Richards, that one day of making phone calls, tens of thousands of pro-lifers making phone calls, it forced Cecile Richards to go on television, in print media and on television. It forced her to go live and to say, Planned Parenthood actually doesn't operate any mammogram machines. We actually don't provide mammograms. We can only offer referrals. That's how powerful your voice can be.
Right.
And so it's very important
Yeah.
that we are using our voices. You are powerful. Your little voice in Montana or Wyoming or California. Don't think just because you're in a blue state that your voice doesn't matter. It matters. It matters. Babies' lives are on the line. Getting rid of Planned Parenthood funding, it matters. And so you need to use your voice, use it loudly. Be proud of your stand. Be proud of the fact that the person answering the phone at a congressperson's desk knows you and is annoyed that you keep calling. Be proud of that. That's a stamp of approval as far as I'm concerned.
That's a tattoo to put on your arm.
Yeah.
My congressman knows me and is annoyed with me.
That's right.
Is something you're proud of. I love that.
That's right.
Thank you, Abby, for that. I think that's what we needed to hear, because we're going to be asking the pro-life generation, I'm asking you all in the next month to do a lot. Go to your district offices of your House of Representatives and U.S. Senators members. Go and call every single day. Join us to text, message the constituents, pro-life constituents in your district. This is an all hands on deck effort because the time is so short. We have, what we've heard in the past couple of weeks is that they would like to have reconciliation process done by Memorial Day. That's a month from now. I mean, that's a month. We have a month to go, and we have this historic opportunity. The pro-life movement is united that at minimum of all the battles we fight, we have to start with defunding Planned Parenthood. That should just be stupid, simple for Congress. So thank you, Abby, for all you're doing. It's an honor to join with you in this process. I want to promote a special event that Abby and I are doing this summer, along with Laura Maziga at Sidewalk Advocates and Vitae Foundation and Every Life Diapers. We're going to be hosting the third National Celebrate Life weekend. So you can join us at the gala with, we're actually have a very big speaker. Riley Gaines will be our keynote to gala on June 28th in Washington, D.C. We're also going to be hosting the nation's largest diaper drive with Every Life Diapers, where you can donate packs of diapers. We're going to display the diapers. Our goal is to raise enough money to display 392,000 diapers, one diaper for every baby Planned Parenthood aborts. So far, I think we've raised enough for 65,000 diapers. We're going to display these diapers on Capitol Hill. Abby will be there. Riley will be there. I'll be there. And then we're going to show the impact of how many babies Planned Parenthood kills. And then we're going to give them all away to the local community. It's going to be amazing. I hope you can join us to be there at the rally, at the gala. There's also a conference that, and then when we're done, Pro-Love and Sidewalk Advocates will be organizing that whole weekend. So it's an entire weekend of pro-life activism. Students for Life will have our National Leaders Collective going on. It's going to be an amazing weekend. So go to CelebrateLifeWeekend.com and sign up. The rally is absolutely free to join us. Don't let money delay you. If you need to get there, call somebody, call a local Knights of Columbus or Right to Life person, or call somebody at Students for Life. Will help you out. But thank you, Abby, for joining us this fight. Your voice is so powerful. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Don't forget, go to studentsforlifeaction.org/ tell Congress to immediately email your senators and House of Representatives member and tell them you've been watching this webcast on tax day and you demand that your tax dollars stop funding the largest abortion Goliath, Planned Parenthood, and defund all abortion vendors out of our federal budget. Once again, it's studentsforlifeaction.org/tell Congress. Please make sure you spread the word, paste this on social media. Make sure you help us get the word going. I had the honor a couple weeks ago, actually 2 months ago, delivering 50,000 signed petitions from pro-life activists to Speaker Mike Johnson, who received them very joyfully, which was amazing. It was a different change of pace for me. But we've got a lot more to do in the next month, and we can't do this without you. Thank you for watching tonight.